and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your usual news update. And we've got quite a bit to get into today. We're going to be talking about Lineker's quotes regarding DCL, Shearer's quotes regarding DCL. We're also going to give an update on the transfer window of the summer and one of the stories that happened, of course. I'm sure you're all aware, but Krstovic was a player Leeds United were linked with, and he's been talking to Italian press, and there's been Italian press sort of getting an understanding of what's actually happened with Krstovic and why he didn't end up at Leeds United. So we'll talk a bit about that. And actually, were Leeds United that interested? I can tell you for a fact that they were from the reports. And also, finally, we're going to talk a bit about the relegation battle, where we're at the moment. All the newly promoted clubs doing really, really well at the moment. Leeds United winning at the weekend, of course, and I still can't get over the positivity. Can I promise that I'll be this positive when Leeds United eventually do next lose a game? I can't promise that. But right now, in the moment, I am still living on the wave of the Wolves win. Still positive about the 3 goals. Maybe it will start to die out, but it hasn't just yet. Obviously, Sunderland doing as well. We'll talk about that and how they're performing, and Burnley doing well. Because Burnley, to be honest with you, I know obviously they're doing worse than the other 2, but they've still picked up 4 points, more than any of the relegated teams from last season at this point. Plus, they've lost in the last minute to Liverpool and Man United. So, you know, there is bits to talk about there. Why are they all doing so well? So we're going to get into that as well. So quite a number of different topics to get into today. I'm quite looking forward to today's show because I'm doing it a bit later now, which is obviously going to be my usual time, like I talked about last week, or in yesterday's video, that now at 8 PM is going to be my time for videos. I've sort of been waiting all day to do the show, it feels like. But there is, as I said, quite a bit to get into. So let's start with the Krstovic story, shall we? So basically, Italian reports have been reporting this morning and a bit last night that basically what has happened with Krstovic is that Leeds United were really, really keen on Krstovic from all accounts. They were really, really keen. They wanted Krstovic. They made multiple bids for Krstovic, and they'd been trying all window to convince Krstovic to join Leeds United. Obviously, he's ended up at Atlanta. He's actually started quite well at Atlanta, banging 2 goals in his first game there. But apparently, what ended up happening with that was that he wasn't interested in coming to Leeds United. And to be honest, if anyone was covering the story at the time, which I know a lot of people were, you'll have known that Krstovic wasn't interested in the Leeds United move. This was reported a number of times. I know we went in right at the start, and apparently we went in really early for Krstovic. He was one of our key targets in forward areas. And Leeds United basically just got battered away by Krstovic and his sort of agents. He wanted to stay in Italy and fight for sort of titles or trophies in Italy rather than come to a quote-unquote relegation fodder team in the Premier League in Leeds United. Or I think if he did want to come to the Premier League, it was only going to be for some of the top clubs, which, let's be honest, he's not at that level, I don't think. So that was never going to happen. Do I believe this story? I think I do, actually. I do think that we were in for Krstovic. I think it was made quite clear. I remember at the time, Di was putting out tweets about Leeds United getting close to Krstovic, who obviously has got really good connections in Italy. And apparently it was really, really close, like it's been mentioned. And I do think if Leeds United went early, like it says in the Italian reports, the money probably was there. Because we know we bidded £32 million for Muniz in the transfer window. We obviously know we bidded over £30 million for Pajau as well. So there clearly was money there to spend at the start of the window. Because I think at the start of the window, the sort of plan was we'll spend money and we'll get a few sales in. And then obviously, as the window adapted and we missed out on the players we wanted, we ended up changing our approach and going, let's keep the best players we've got rather than selling them. And then, of course, not invest as much in the transfer market, which is why I think obviously the Pajau thing happened and why the Muniz thing happened. Then we ended up replacing it with free agent Calvert-Lewin and obviously free agent Nemecha as well. So yeah, I do think this story is probably true. I'm glad we've gone for Calvert-Lewin, and we're going to talk a bit now about Calvert-Lewin as well. Of course, but like always on the shows, the reason I do these lives is get your comments in, people, and we'll talk through all your comments that you mentioned throughout the show as well. Because if we end up in other topics, we can do that. That's part of the show. But we'll get through the news first, and then obviously we'll get into some of your guys' comments. So yeah, that is the update really regarding Leeds United and the Krstovic link and the thing. We were there. Leeds United were making bids for him. He didn't want the move. He wanted to stay in Serie A or go to a top Premier League club. And that's really the story. I do think there's truth in it, but, you know, is what it is. We've ended up in a better situation anyway, in my opinion, which I'm going to talk about now. Because let's talk about this DCL story. So DCL story, Gary Lineker and obviously Alan Shearer, of course, talking on the Rest Is Football podcast this morning, suggested that actually, well, Gary Lineker's exact quote is, if he stays fit, we know there's a player in there. And this is something that I emulate with Gary Lineker as well. I do think we've seen from Calvert-Lewin so far, if he can stay fit, there is a player there. I think he's absolutely right. I think Calvert-Lewin is going to offer a lot to this Leeds United team for sure. And actually, Alan Shearer went on to say that if Leeds get the ball up to him, he will score goals. And again, I agree with that. Like, you look at sort of what happened at the weekend, obviously, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The ball gets put in from the right-hand side from Bogle. And basically, out of nothing, he wins a header that goes looping over the keeper into the back of the net. And people have talked about this and obviously talked about Calvert-Lewin and sort of, oh yeah, he scored a goal, fantastic. I haven't seen the praise of this goal like I think it deserves. This goal for me is nearly as good as the stat goal. I know the stat goal is an absolute worldie, but in a different skill setting, this Calvert-Lewin goal is it's an absolute moment. Like, this is the equivalent to me, in a headed term, of a long shot from the edge of the area that flies into the top corner. That's how good a goal this was. There was nothing in the game at that moment, in my opinion. Yes, Leeds United were pushing the game, but actually nothing was really happening for Leeds United in terms of chances. Bogue whips a cross in, takes a little nick, obviously, on the way through. Calvert-Lewin rises like an absolute salmon, jumping down a waterfall, and then heads it into the back of the net. And it was an absolute moment of quality. And as sort of Alan Shearer and Gary Neville have both said, not Gary Neville, Gary Lineker have both said, the goals will come with Calvert-Lewin. And right now, if I'm looking at sort of where I think he's going to be out for the season, I think he can get double figures easily with the form. It's just about keeping him fit, and that is the whole underlying argument. Calvert-Lewin will be an unbelievable bit of business for Leeds United in the summer if we can keep him fit. That is the underlying statement. If he stays fit, for paying no money for him, it will be a brilliant signing for sure. Like, I think that will be, for the price we've paid compared to the output we're going to get, probably one of the most underrated signings in the whole Premier League this season, genuinely, because of the price we've paid. And people can go on about sort of, yeah, but Scott, he's on loads of money. All right, okay, fine. I built the argument already for this, by the way. Fine, he's on loads of money. So, say he's on 100 grand a week, which, by the way, would be excessive. I don't think he'd be on that much. But let's go the high side. Say he's on 100 grand a week. Leeds United put on a 3-year contract. So 3 years, 100 grand a week is £15.6 million. That's how much it is, £15.6 million. For example, if we bought Krstovic, who I thought we'd bring up since we were talking about him, Atlanta paid £22 million in the summer for Krstovic. That's how much they paid for him. So if Leeds United, say, paid £22 million for Krstovic and put him on 50 grand a week, that would be near on £7.8 million in wages that we pay for over a 3-year period. And we'd have to pay £22 million as well on top of that, which, when you put it all together, is near on, obviously, £30 million. So Krstovic is double the price in the outlay this summer that a Calvert-Lewin costs. Double the price. And that's even if Krstovic's on 50 grand a week and Calvert-Lewin's on 100 grand a week. And I don't think there'd be that parity in terms of how much each individual player costs. So regardless of what you think about Calvert-Lewin, and almost regardless of how much money he's on, as long as he's not on something like 200 grand a week, which he definitely isn't, by the way, I think he'd be on less than 100. I imagine it's probably about 80 grand a week. But even if it is 100 on that top end, it's still only £15 million over a 3-year period. It's an absolute bargain of a signing. It really is. As I said, it will all just be determined, though, by if he stays fit or not. That will be the underlying thing, and that will determine if this is an unbelievable bit of business. But I'm telling you for a fact, people, if he stays fit for the whole season, or even stays fit for 80% of the season, and we get to the end of the season, almost as a season like Solomon had last year. I know Solomon was out a bit, I think, in maybe like November time. That's when Ramazani got into the team. But as I said, overall, for me, if Calvert-Lewin stays fit, the praise that the 49ers should get for getting this deal over the line, I think needs to be, it will not be understated. Will not be understated, because we can talk about, oh, it's a bargain, his stack, we paid £70 million for him. That's more than we're going to pay plus wages for Calvert-Lewin alone. Let's talk about, Beal's a great signing. Goodman's a great signing. Fantastic. We paid £10 million for Goodmanson. We paid nothing for Thingy. So even with the wages, he's the cheapest signing almost in the team, other than the other Calvert-Lewin. Like, even Longstaff, he thinks, cheap signing. Calvert-Lewin's less than that. Like, everybody is, even on top of wages, because the wages actually, unless they're completely excessive, which they're definitely not, because Leeds United would not commit to paying 100 grand a week in case we go down to the Championship. They wouldn't do that with the chance that we could go down. That would never happen. So as I said, I think people have understated. Maybe it's because of his injuries, and maybe that's probably why I'm missing out on. But I think people have understated potentially how good a deal this DCL deal actually is for us. I think it's a fantastic deal. BMG says DCL is on exactly 100 grand a week, according to Joe Blackburn, who researched it. Harrison's on 90k, by the way. Yeah, I know. The Harrison contract, I don't know if people remember it, but it came out obviously in the January window, where I think Radrazani actually pushed for a sale, and actually I think at the time, if I remember rightly, the 49ers wanted to keep obviously Jack Harrison, and that's ended up horrendously. But if you remember, we were in a relegation battle. We were going to sell him to obviously Leicester at the time. And Leicester ended up pulling out because Leeds United basically agreed a new contract with him. But in order to get Harrison to agree a new contract, because I believe at that point he had like 6 months left on his contract, we had to end up giving him a stupid deal. And this is what I always say about these deals and stuff. And this is why when we've talked about Ampadu's and we've talked about Piro's and we've talked about Strauch's, all these players need to be signed up this year. They have to be signed up this year because, as we know, Pirot, Ampadu, all these players, there's a few more, isn't there? But Pro and Ampadu, as used examples, both of them have got 1 year left contracts in the summer. We have to get them over the line before this year. We can't have them go into the final year because if they go into the final year, if you get down to like 6 months, like we did with Harrison, we're going to end up paying stupid wages for these players. We have to get these players signed up this year for sure. So I'm expecting from the 49ers, by Christmas, to be honest, new deals for Ampadu, new deals for Pro, new deals for Pascal Strauch, and there's a few more as well who've got 1 year left in the contract. They all need to be done now because the later they get, the more money they can demand. Because if they've got something like 6 months left on the contract, as I said, you're going to get you're going to pay stupid wages, exactly like we did with Jack Harrison. And that's why Jack Harrison's on so much money, by the way. All 3 goals were above average, I think. Players are proving they have the maturity to succeed. Yeah, I think there's something in that. I do think, personally, I know people are not going to like this comment. I do think the Stack shot, regardless, probably should have been saved by the keeper. Like, it's a wonderful goal. And this is not me taking anything away from Stack in any way, shape or form. That is literally postage stamp top corner. It's a brilliant finish. But if Darlow got beat like that, I'd be quite annoyed. And actually, if you remember the week before when we played against Fulham, there was a similar actually free kick from Harry Wilson that obviously got bent towards the far corner that Darlow actually saved in a very similar circumstance. I know it wasn't quite as postage stamp as the Stack one and not as quite as powerful. But I do expect keepers on their side to save it personally. And I think that's been stuff that's been mentioned in Match of the Day and in other comments as well. I've seen Wolves fans mention it should have been saved. That doesn't take anything away from the Stack free kick though. I'm just saying I think the Calvert-Lewin was slightly different because I think that would have been a much harder save. 2 things DCL gives us is a target for the keeper to win balls in the air and secondly, headed goals, neither of which we had in recent years. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it gives us a completely different option. And I'd say the same with Nemetra as well, by the way. They both give us a different option. We haven't had a hold-up striker in... Even Patrick Bamford. I know Patrick Bamford held the ball up for Leeds United. Everyone knows he did that. He was fantastic at holding the ball, but to an extent, we haven't had a dominant powerhouse striker like a Calvert-Lewin and a Nemetra since... I can't even remember the last time we had it. Maybe since Matt Smith. That's the last one I can remember of like a big powerhouse striker at Leeds United had. Maybe you guys can think of someone in the comments because maybe mine's gone black. But that's the last one I can think of a big powerhouse striker. Now, obviously, it goes without saying Calvert-Lewin and Nemetra at absolute levels on Matt Smith. I mean, he was horrendous for Leeds. Except that one game, I think we won 4-0. Can you remember that game? But yeah. No, I agree. I think they give us something completely different. And I like the fact that out of nothing, if you just cross a ball in, you've got a chance that Calvert-Lewin can get on the end of it. As I said, I think we're going to look back. I'm really hoping he can stay fit. Because I think if he stays fit, he gets us over 10 goals. And if he gets us over 10 goals, maybe even over 12 goals, and you get to the end of the season, I think people look at it and go, what a deal that was. And I think if you're a Wolves fan, or you're a West Ham fan, or whoever you are, whoever fan you are of a club lower down the league, you look at it and go, we were stupid not doing that. Leeds did really, really well there. Because as I've talked about, it's such a bargain. And even if we're paying massive wages, it's such a bargain. It really is. So yeah, I'm really, at the moment, my Calvert-Lewin praise can't go far enough, as you can tell. I'm really, I think we're just doing really well with it. Which is funny, actually, because if you go back on this channel to when we signed DCL, at that point, I was looking at sort of Dovbyk and players like that, and I was like, oh, it's a bit disappointing. Now, looking back, it was a smart deal from Leeds. It was a smart deal. And as I said, we've talked about sort of probably Stat being a really good deal for Leeds, Goodmanson being a really good deal. I think potentially you could end up with DCL being sign of the season just for the price of the fact that we paid nothing for him. I think he really generally could be that good for us. Because also, as we know, not just that, but like when we talk about Stack, he's a midfield player. When we talk about Goodmanson, he's a left back. The strikers always cost the most money. This has been the case with football from day dot. The forwards cost the most money. Strikers are the most expensive players on the pitch, come what may. And they always have been. Like, look at the price Isak ended up going for 130 million quid. Like, that strikers always cost more money. So to get one of free of the level that Calvert-Lewin has provided so far, serious bargain. Serious bargain. We've done so well there. We really have. As I said, my only thing with him is obviously the injuries. And the other thing I do want to say about Calvert-Lewin as well is, in my opinion, is I actually think we're going to see a better Calvert-Lewin in a few weeks. Like he talked about this in his post-match recently, obviously after the game, and he talked about the synergy with sort of Goodmanson and the midfield. The midfield didn't mention as much. He mentioned like there was times when obviously Goodmanson got down the left-hand side, and I think Bo got down the right-hand side a few times, and even Okafor at times on the wing got down the line. And they cut it back to the wrong place, and Calvert-Lewin didn't predict the movement. So sometimes Calvert-Lewin went to the front post when he should have gone to the back post, and they crossed the back post. And other times it went to the back post when Calvert-Lewin went to the front post. And I think that that's sort of something that they can work on, but that's something that will come with time. The more, obviously, Calvert-Lewin plays for Leeds United, with Goodmansons and with Bogle and with Okafor and with James and whoever you want to put on the wings, the more he will get an understanding of when to go near post, when to go far post. And the other thing with Calvert-Lewin, which I've mentioned as well, is there was a lot of times at the weekend when the ball went up to Calvert-Lewin long from Darlow, who's kicking, by the way, was really good at the weekend, and the ball would go long to Calvert-Lewin, and he'd flick the ball on, and nobody no one had made that run that we saw from Mbeumo against Chelsea at the weekend. No one made that sort of inverted winger run that everybody loves. Like even the Martinelli goal is an inverted winger run. It's a fantastic run, that. And if you get a flick on with Calvert-Lewin and you've got Okafor making that dashing run from the left-hand side into a central space, that could be a real threat for Leeds United. And we could score goals in such a direct form from doing that. But again, that's like when we talk about Goodmanson and the synergy there, that's when the synergy needs to be associated with Okafor and whoever going to play on the right-hand side as well. The synergy that when the ball goes up, get ready for Calvert-Lewin to knock it on and make that inverted run into a central space to pick up the ball and potentially then get a one-on-one opportunity like we saw with Mbeumo. Because anything can happen when you go one-on-one. You can get pulled down, like obviously Sanchez did to Mbeumo at the weekend. But that's just one example. I don't really want to use Man United examples naturally because I don't really like them. But it was a good example of what actually Calvert-Lewin can bring us, not just in terms of his goals, but his flick-ons as well. Because I don't actually think we capitalised on some of his flick-ons were really good at the weekend, and I don't think we quite capitalised on it. I think actually there's levels to go, and you might see him getting some assists from that as well. The only way the keeper saves that is the free kick. If the keeper, the only way the keeper saves that is if the free kick is if he gambles and goes early. It was hit with so much harder than most free kicks and curled. He's never saving that. Fair enough, BMG. I think would you not be disappointed then if Darlow didn't save that? Because for me, if it was Darlow in goal, if it was Perry in goal, whoever it would be in goal, I would be disappointed if they got beat, in my opinion, from that free kick, personally. As I said, this isn't a knock on Stack, and I don't want to knock his free kick. That is not my intention at all. But I do think that I've seen a lot of pundits say it as well, so it's not. I feel like I've been backed up with that. I don't think that's too controversial. The same could be said of Nemecha. Might have the same impact as DCL, but will play an important role, so we need him fit. 100% agree. 100% agree. And my brother actually talking to me today, and we were on about sort of DCL and Nemecha and Okafor, and he made an interesting point, actually. He said, actually, Scott, Calvert-Lewin getting injured, of the two, between him and Okafor, wouldn't be the worst. Because he said if Okafor goes down, we haven't really got any more winger threats, in my opinion, on the left-hand side. It's what my brother was saying. I think he's right. I don't think we've got the drop-off from Okafor to the next winger we play on the left-hand side, which is potentially Nonto, for me is quite significant. Whereas I think if Calvert-Lewin went down injured, Nemecha's not as big a drop-off in that sense, if that makes sense. So if the two went injured, I think it'd be interesting. I'd probably disagree with him, and I still probably think I'd rather have, ideally have them both fit. But in an ideal world, if I could only have one fit, I'd probably have DCL fit, I think. But I did think that was an interesting point in terms of the drop-off from Okafor to the next left winger that we've got at this moment in time, because obviously don't think we quite addressed that in the best way in the summer transfer window. Whereas actually when you drop from Calvert-Lewin to Nemecha, we've still got a player there of some decent quality. Although I really do think as the season goes on, we'll see that Calvert-Lewin is a much greater striker, in my opinion, than Nemecha. Not that Nemecha's bad, I just think Calvert-Lewin's that next level up. It will be very... he'll be very handy in games where we need a goal. We can pump crosses in for DCL. Yeah, definitely. I do think the ability to put cross, like the amount of crosses that Wolves got in at the weekend, in that second half. If DCL's up there, I think they make more of it. I really do. This squad reminds me of the '92 title-winning squad. Wow. Okay. The only limit on the team is Farke's cautious approach, but with so many experienced players, they may make Farke loosen up a bit. See, I think we disagree on this. I mean, I don't obviously think the team's going to win the league or it's that level of quality. I know PSF, when I've listened to your talk and sort of read your comments over the long period of time, I know you sort of value the experience in the team, and I think that's something to mention, by the way. Like, I think for the longest time at Leeds United, we've had a lot of young players. This summer, obviously, we've targeted that 25 to 28 bracket of player. That's been the sort of age range we've gone for, which I think we're seeing the dividends of that in the actual results that we've had recently. Now, if that's going to be good enough to get us to a point where we want to be, we're going to have to find out. But I do think that's an interesting point. I really do. I personally think that the free kick was close to unsavable. Pundits always feel compelled to blame someone, but that gets saved 1 in 100 times, in my opinion. Fair enough. We just disagree at BMG. I do think if that was one of our keepers, look, I don't really care. It's gone in. I don't really care. But I do think if that's one of our keepers, I am going, that was probably a mistake, personally. Not like a howler, not like some of the Melier saves last year where it's just like palming his own net like a bozo. Not like that at all, but I don't think I don't know. I think some of the better keepers in the league save that, personally. I really do. But I might be wrong. But I'd take nothing away from Stat, by the way, because if his free kick is trying to put it on that side, the keeper's side, he couldn't have done it any better. It was hit with such venom, and it was so in the top corner. It was unbelievable. Like, it couldn't have been more top corner if he tried. It was in that sort of arch right at the top where it goes through. So in terms of getting it that side, it was pretty much as good as it could have possibly been. It really was. I've thought recently how crucial it is that we stay up. If we do, we'll be able to strengthen so much in the summer. Yeah, this is. I always agree with this, BMG. This is always my point. In my head, I'm just thinking, just stay up first year. Because if you stay up first year, and I've talked about this, I think, potentially really early in the channel, one of my earlier videos, if you stay up for 1 year, you get that next 150 million quid. So imagine this team with another 150 million popped in. And also at the start of a new 3-year cycle next year. So we better lose more money from FFP, and we know, and PSR, and we know the 49ers max out PSR every year. They have since they've joined the club. So they do that again next season. So I think if we stay up this year, you are looking at, I think, a net spend that we'd be able to do of something in the region of £150 million next summer. If Leeds United can add £150 million worth of talent to this Leeds United team, we aren't going down. For me, if we stay up this year, that's it. We'll be stalwart in the Premier League for a while, unless we drastically mess it up. Which is why, obviously, last time when we went up with Bielsa, and we got to that 9th position, why it was such a monumental failure from the board. Because it's so hard to stay up first year. And when you do, and you get that extra money again, you've got to go again and really punish the rest of the newly promoted teams. Because then essentially they're going up. So say, I don't know, next year Leicester go up and, I don't know, Southampton going up and Ipswich go up. Say they're three promoted. They've got their squads with 100 million probably on top of that. We'd then have our squad that we went up with, which I think is better than all them squads, plus we'd have 300 million on top of that. So unless you monumentally mess up the transfer window, it's so hard to get relegated now, which is why it's so hard for Leeds to stay up this year as well. That's why it's so hard, because we're competing against clubs like Bournemouths, like Forests, like all these teams who've had 3 years now, so they've had 150 million on 150 million on 150 million, and we're trying to compete with them with just 150 million. That's why it's so difficult to stay up. And the longer the 17 teams stay at the top and they keep getting that 150 million every single time, the harder it is for a new club to break that cycle. It gets harder and harder and harder year on year, which is why you see Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and all these pundits come out and say we need one of them 17 teams to come back down, because it freshens up the league. You need it desperately. But as you say, BMG, if we can just stay up this year, I think we'll be safe. I might be wrong, and I might come back to it in my own words, but if we can just stay up this year, we could be genuinely an established Premier League team quickly. And what's even more exciting than that is, if you can stay up the second year, if you stay up after the first year, and you get that next 150 million, and you spend it well again, quite quickly you can come into a European chasing team. Quite quickly. Maybe in 2-3 years of good spending of that money, you can straight away get yourself in Europe. Genuinely, we've seen it with Villa, who did it really quickly, who got into the Conference League in the 3rd year, I think it was. We've seen Forest do it really quickly. They got in the 3rd year as well. If you get it right, and you stay up this first year, and you get in your 2nd year, by the time you get to the 3rd year, you can really compete for Europe straight away, which is crazy. Like, imagine in 3 years' time, we've stayed in the league. We've got a team full of £30 million players in each position and a stacked bench, and we're potentially chasing Europe. Oh, it could be so good, people. It could be so good. Which is why it's every single game is like a cup final this year. It really is a cup final. Like that's why I was so buzzing at the game at the weekend, because I know if we can stay at one time, we could be really set in the Premier League for a long period of time. With the turnover we know the club makes, with the deals of Red Bull, with the 49ers putting every penny that they can in the club, we've got something here. We just got to stay at one time. This time, it'd be so good if we could. Teams like Brighton, etc., needed 3 odd years to establish themselves. But the size of the club, we can become established much quicker. Yeah, we can. We can. Yeah, we can, definitely. Yeah. So that's really exciting. It's really exciting for us. Let's talk a bit about relegation anyway. Oh, we'll save that. Actually, we'll save that because we'll get into 25 minutes anyway. And I don't want to go for like that's another probably 20-minute conversation. So we'll save that for tomorrow's video. Tomorrow's video, unfortunately. I can't do live, unfortunately. I've got something on in the evening. So what I'll do is I'll do a pre-record, but it will still go at 8 o'clock. Because as I said, every video, always, from now on, 8 p.m. on this channel. 8 p.m. every single day, except Saturday, or except the day when the Leeds United actually play, which is obviously when you'll get an instant match reaction. But yeah, I'll do a whole thing about the relegation battle tomorrow, because I could go into a bit more detail with that. We'll just get into some of your guys' comments, and then we'll wrap it up for today, because it's been a really enjoyable show, actually. Like always, this is why I like doing live. Like we've on about if Leeds United stay up for 1 year, the benefit of it. I didn't expect to be here, but I hope you guys enjoy this sort of conversation, because I definitely do. I'm hoping that we've come into league at the right time, with several clubs potentially suffering from losing players like Wolves, or managers like Forest and Brentford, or being crap like West Ham. Yeah, no, I think we've hit. I do think we've come at a good time. I do agree with that, BMG. I think Wolves look the most vulnerable I think they have for a long time, and we saw that at the weekend. I think Wolves are going to go down. I'm quite convinced. I've got them at about, in my head, about 80-90% relegated, in my opinion. I genuinely think they're nailed on for relegation, because I actually don't think Victor Pereira's that bad a coach. And I think they're going to blame the coach, and then the new manager's going to come in, and actually the results are not going to improve that much, because actually maybe it wasn't the coach's problem. I think that could be something that happens with Wolves. I really do think that. I think they're vulnerable. West Ham are really vulnerable, in my opinion. Now, obviously, West Ham, I think, have got a really strong squad. Like Paqueta's, we know Somerville's a good player. Jared Bowen's one of the better wingers in the whole division. The only thing I would say is they've got Leicester vibes about them, in my opinion. Like, do you remember when Leicester went down with Harvey Barnes and Maddison and pretty good Vardy at the point, and loads of and I think they had a few other, and Tillemans in midfield, a really, really strong team that should have never been relegated. But there was so much disconnect between the fan base and the owners and stuff at that point, and there was booing all the time at Leicester, and it was just really negative. And it screams West Ham to me at the moment. How negative that club is. They hate the new stadium. They hate their owner. They hate the manager. They hate the team. Like that, there's so much negativity at West Ham that even though they've got a really strong squad, in my opinion, which I think they have, I don't think that squad's that bad at all. They've got real quality, West Ham. I do think the negativity can sometimes drag you into a relegation battle. And the other thing that they do as well, which is totally daft at West Ham, is, and Leicester were exactly the same with this as well, they concede so many goals from set pieces. So many goals from set pieces. If you want an easy way to get yourself relegated, concede a boatload of goals from set pieces. It's literally a guaranteed relegation for you. And as I said, when we look at that Leicester team and how they went down with the likes of Maddison's, Tillemans, Barnes, etc., it was because they conceded boatloads of goals from set pieces. So many. So yeah, I think they look really vulnerable as well. And I do think Brentford look vulnerable as well. I really do. I think Villa obviously are struggling at the moment. Like, they looked awful against Sunderland yesterday, in my opinion. Really, really bad. But I do think they'll get better, because they've got so much quality everywhere. So I don't think Villa will go down. I really don't. I think this is a flash in the pan, in my opinion. I also think Emery's a good coach, and I back him to turn that around. But I look at Brentford, and I think they're weak. I think they're really weak. I watched them against Fulham at the weekend, and Fulham easily. I mean, they should have won the game 4-1, because Mooney's goal for me should have stood. When I watched Leeds obviously play with Fulham the week before, and we put such a much more competitive performance in than Brentford did. Because, by the way, Brentford got gifted the goal by Fulham as well. It was a complete gift from Josh King to Damsgaard, who finished it off well. And besides that, they got truly battered by Fulham. And again, it wasn't like it was a completely different squad and Kevin was in. That Kevin came on later. So I look at them three teams for me: Wolves, Brentford and West Ham. They are vulnerable teams, and I think they're as bad as they've been for a long time. So I agree with BMG. I do think this is, of all times, this is a real opportunity for Leeds United to stay in the division. And I do obviously think Burnley will be vulnerable. I don't think they're the worst team. I think all them teams are worse right now than Burnley, Sunderland, and Leeds, to be honest. But I don't think they'll all go down personally. Scott, even though we generally disagree, I enjoy your enthusiasm. Thank you very much. A lot of people say that. I am quite enthusiastic about my club, I must admit. I don't know if it comes across. It must do, because I get that a lot. That, like, I'm obsessed with it, and, like, I don't know. I don't know how you come across enthusiastic, but maybe it's obvious. I don't know. But this is how I am. Like, even when I'm talking to my dad and my brother or my mates in the pub about Leeds, I can't. I'm obsessed with it. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So, yeah. Like, everyone was like, you're going to end up doing this, because, like, realistically, like, you're just obsessed. And yeah, I guess that's a good point. Potter will likely get sacked if they don't turn around soon. Yeah, I agree. A lot will depend on whether they can appoint a good replacement. Yeah, they're looking at Slavan Bilic, which I think is really odd. Like, I think that screams relegation, because I think the West Ham fans, again, are going to be so negative about that appointment and think, what is David Sullivan at West Ham doing again? I think if they got Nuno, I'd be a bit more concerned. Like, I'm really hoping they do not get Nuno. If Nuno goes in there, I'll be a bit worried. Also, if Nuno goes to any of them clubs, I'll be a bit worried. I think Brentford will stick on with this Keith Andrews thing a bit longer. I think he'll be the last to get sacked to the three of them. But I do think they will all be sacked this year, all them managers. But whoever gets Nuno, I think, might be all right. Although, even I think Wolves, it's so stale there. I think they could even go down with Nuno. I really do. I think they're awful. I do think they're awful. Because, as I said, I don't think Victor Pereira is that bad a coach. And the fact that they're still picking up results with him in charge, I think is a worry. I really do think it's a worry. You just need to practice saying, yes, BMG, you're right. To be fair, we used to agree all the time, BMG, but since recently, we've not agreed as much, to be fair. I don't really care about other clubs because I feel we'll finish top 10. I know you've said this all the time, PSF. And to be honest, if we do finish top 10, I need to get you something, like, because you've nailed that. I don't think we will. I'd still absolutely snap your hands off of 17th. That might sound negative. I'd snap your hands off 17th, because realistically, you get a bit more money for finishing 10th. But I'd snap your hands off for 17th right now. I hate to say it, but Sunderland showed how to defend versus a decent top team with 10 men. Aggressive press and defended deep when needed. Yeah, Sunderland were brilliant. I thought Sunderland should have won the game even with 10 men. I don't think Sunderland are going to go down. I really don't. That's the only thing that's annoying. Like, when we talk about sort of that Wolves and Brentford and West Ham are all really vulnerable right now and the worst cycle they've been, I'm really disappointed that Sheffield United didn't win that playoff final, because I think Sheffield United win that playoff final, I think Leeds staying up becomes a real much higher chance, because Sunderland would have got a much better team than Sheffield United would have had in the Premier League this season by far. If Sheffield United had won that playoff final, I was actually at the playoff final, if anyone cares, but if Sunderland had won that playoff, if Sheffield United had won that playoff final, I think we're looking at a different story. I think they're going bottom. I'd have predicted Sheffield United bottom if they'd have gone up. And then I'd have had Burnley second bottom, and then probably Wolves. But Sunderland coming up and winning that playoff final was annoying, because they've not helped us at all, really. If they appoint Bilic, they're screwed. Nuno could save them. Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with it. Brentford have looked half decent. Results haven't been good. Yeah, they have at times. I watched them against Chelsea. I thought they were really good in that game against Chelsea. I thought they were very needed. I thought they were very sort of deserving of the point in that game. Although Chelsea have been a bit odd. Like, I'm not fully sure that they're as good as people think they are, and they've got a really shaky defence, a really crap keeper. So I think that maybe, like, I think Leeds United could get a draw against Chelsea at home. I really do. Like, I don't think that's going to be as good a result. And then they beat Villa as well, 1-0 at home. And Villa dominated that game, but just couldn't score. And that's something we've seen from Villa anyway. So I'm not sure how good a win that's going to be either. So, and they got comprehensively battered by Fulham at the weekend. So I don't know. Brentford I've read Brentford. We need to get as many points as possible before December, because those fixtures are tough. Our running isn't too bad though. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Also, I think our next four, I said it before the Wolves game, and obviously that was a fantastic result for us, but our next 4 games now are massive. They're absolutely massive, because I think we can pick up points in all of them. I don't think we will pick up points in all of them, but I think all of them potential games where Leeds United can pick up points. Like, we've got, obviously, next week we've got, God, brain's gone blank. Someone remind me who we've got next. Who have we got at the weekend? I've just completely blanked. Who have we got? It'll come to me. Oh, I'm going to have to search it. Who have we got at the weekend? Oh, yeah, we've got Bournemouth at home. Yeah, Bournemouth at home. Then we've got Spurs at home. And then we've got Burnley away, and then we've got, obviously, West Ham at home. Them 4 are all really strong games. West Ham and Burnley are obviously 2 that I think are probably going to be down there. I don't think Bournemouth and Spurs are, but I'm glad that they're the home games because I think we're better. I think, obviously, we're better at home. So I think all of them are really good options for points, in my opinion. Yeah, you're all saying Bournemouth. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what I just absolutely blanked. Maybe it's because it's nearly getting to 9 o'clock at night. But yeah, no, I look at them games like Bournemouth are a really good team, and I've seen a lot of people giving Bournemouth a lot of praise, and rightly so. They're a fantastically coached team. Iraola would have been a top appointment if we'd have managed to get him. Obviously, we didn't. He went to Bournemouth, and he's doing a really good job there. And they've got Semenyo, who's performing like one of the better players in the whole division at this moment in time. He looks fantastic. So they're a really strong team. However, they do have when I've seen them, they do seem to struggle against the teams where especially when they're playing away from home, when they've got to be the team that put it on a team. Like, they're better when they play like Spurs away and games like that. Like, they actually lost last year at Leicester, did Bournemouth. They lost 1-0 to Leicester last year. So I do think if we can get ourselves up in the game and we can be really hard to beat and do what Leeds United do well, manage the game really well, win loads of good, get ball to Calvert-Lewin, get him winning fouls, frustrate Bournemouth. I do think if we score the first goal, I won't be that shocked if we beat Bournemouth. I really won't. I think Spurs are different because I think Spurs have got more ways to win, in my opinion, than Bournemouth potentially. Like, Bournemouth play a certain style. So I think that's obviously... Whereas I think with Spurs, like, you look at them at Brighton at the weekend, like, it won't going well for the game. Thomas Frank changed it up and they went flying in the second half. So I don't know, but I don't know. I've got a good feeling about the Bournemouth game at the weekend. I have actually got a good feeling. But let's see, let's see. Anyway, that's what I'm going to wrap it up for today. But really good chat today. I've really enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll still be positive throughout this whole week. As I said, I can't promise I'll always be really positive. Because naturally, if I'm this enthusiastic person, which obviously you guys see that I am, obviously results naturally do affect me. I will try to avoid that as much as I can. But, you know what I'm like. Anyway, thanks all for watching as always. And remember, tomorrow, unfortunately, I can't do a live stream. Really annoying. I'll be back on Wednesday with a live stream. But... we will have a normal video out tomorrow as well at 8 p.m. So stick around for 8 p.m. And I'll put it as a premiere as well, which means that you guys can almost watch it live and you can interact in the chat like normal. Just obviously, I won't be sat there live streaming as well. But yeah, I'll do that. And we'll talk a bit about the relegation battle tomorrow and where Sunderland and sort of Burnley and Leeds are at this moment in time. I think it should be a good video because I was going to do it today, but as I said, it's dragged on a bit. Anyway, thanks all for watching as always, and I will see you all tomorrow, but not really, but it'll be Wednesday when I see you fully. But yeah, remember, 8 p.m. tomorrow and 8 p.m. then there should be a stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Sunday. So you'll be blessed with streams after this. Anyway, yeah, I'm dragging this on. Thanks all for watching. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now, everybody.